All right, let's get right into it. We're taking a look at some newly released documents from the Jeffrey Epstein files. These were files that were actually missing from the initial release, and they contain some very serious, though unverified, allegations against President Trump. So we're going to break down what these documents say, the White House response, and the much bigger questions this whole thing raises about the investigation itself.
And that's really the question at the heart of all this, right? What was in these missing files? I mean, these aren't just random papers. The fact that they showed up late is a story in itself. So, what exactly do they tell us that we didn't know before? So, the story here really starts with the Justice Department. See, after that first big drop of Epstein files, the DOJ quietly posted some additional documents. And what were they? FBI memos. Memos that were, you could say, conspicuously absent the first time around. And what's in them is the reason this has become such a huge deal. Okay, so let's get specific. What we have now are 3 new FBI memos. They summarize 4 separate interviews with one woman. Now, what's so important about that? Well, initially, only a single memo from her interviews was released, and that one only had allegations against Jeffrey Epstein. These new documents, though, they also detail allegations she made against Donald Trump when he was a private citizen. And this brings us right to the core of the conflict. You've got this set of incredibly serious accusations on one side, and on the other, an immediate and total denial. We're just going to look at what both sides are saying, straight from the source material, so you can see the full picture. According to these FBI memos, the accuser's story is laid out pretty clearly. She says she was introduced to Trump as a teenager. Then he allegedly told everyone else to leave the room and made that really disturbing comment. The memo goes on to describe an alleged assault, her reaction, which was to bite him, and his alleged response of striking her. It's a very specific chain of events, all laid out for investigators in these documents. So you really have 2 completely different realities here. On one side, you have this detailed account from one accuser, documented in these FBI memos. And on the other, you have a hard categorical denial from the White House. They're calling the claims completely baseless. And it is important to remember, just because an interview is included in these files, that itself isn't proof that something happened. But the White House didn't just stop at a denial. Their press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, basically turned the tables. She's pointing the finger at the previous administration's Department of Justice, arguing, hey, if these claims were credible, why did the DOJ sit on them for 4 years and do absolutely nothing? It's a move that shifts the focus from the allegations themselves to the actions or inaction of federal investigators. And that pivot brings us to this next huge part of the story. The controversy has kind of exploded beyond just this one set of allegations. It's now become a full-blown crisis of confidence in the Department of Justice and how it has handled the entire Epstein case. And that is why Congress is now getting involved. So let's look at why the DOJ is under such a microscope here. It's a few things. First, there were these botched redactions that ended up exposing the private information of survivors. A huge failure. Congress is also ticked off that not all the documents have been released yet. And people are still asking about this so-called client list that the Attorney General mentioned a year ago, which just never appeared. It all adds up to this feeling that the DOJ really fumbled the ball here. Well, all that frustration finally hit a boiling point in Congress, and it led to something you almost never see these days, a rare bipartisan action aimed directly at the Attorney General. 5, that's the number to remember. It's the 5 Republicans on the House Oversight Committee who actually broke away from their party. In a pretty major move, they voted with the Democrats to subpoena the Attorney General to come and testify about how the DOJ has handled this whole mess. And this quote really sums up the political shockwave of that vote. I mean, to have members of the president's own party vote to subpoena his Attorney General, it's being called a stunning rebuke. It just shows you how deep the frustration on Capitol Hill runs and that it's crossing normal party lines. But you know, behind all the politics and the legal documents, it is so crucial to remember the human element here. The people really leading this fight for answers are the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. They've been demanding transparency from the very beginning. This is a really powerful quote from Annie Farmer, who is one of Epstein's survivors. Her words just cut right to the heart of the issue for so many people. This feeling that, again and again, the system seems to protect powerful people, while at the same time it fails to protect victims whose private information was so badly mishandled. It's a call for real accountability. And they are making sure that message is heard, loud and clear. Annie Farmer and other survivors were actually guests of members of Congress at the State of the Union address. Their presence there was this quiet but incredibly powerful statement to everyone in that room and to the country that they are still watching, they are still fighting, and no, they are not going away.
And so that leaves us with this big question. We're seeing investigations related to Epstein's network move forward in other countries, leading to actual consequences. But here in the United States, the path forward seems really uncertain. So, with the justice system facing serious questions and survivors demanding action, will the U.S. find its own way to accountability in this whole deeply troubling saga?